Welcome to Top Floor, the podcast where we amplify discussions with CEOs and chief executives driving the future of small and medium-sized businesses. Get ready to be inspired, informed, and empowered as we delve into the unique minds and journeys of the executive leaders shaping tomorrow's business's landscape. I am your host, Dr. Krista Crawford. In addition to being an adjunct business professor for 2 university MBA programs, I am also a Vistage chair. I coach leaders in peer advisory groups and in one-to-one executive sessions to make better decisions that lead to better businesses and better lives. My guest today is Bill Niland, the CEO of Regel Tech. Bill is a serial healthcare entrepreneur who has founded and successfully exited 4 different companies in the healthcare space. Join me as we ascend to the top floor. Bill, thank you so much for being with me today. I am so thankful that the calendar and the stars aligned so that we could have this conversation.
Great, Krista. Happy to be here.
Fantastic. Let's get started. I want to start current, and then we'll kind of work backwards some. So I have an idea of what Regel Tech is. To represent it the best way, why don't you describe it and tell us a little bit about the story of how it came about?
Sure. Regel Tech is an injectable polymer that we put into a lumbar disc that's degenerative. So patients that have degenerative disc disease in their lumbar spine, this is a injection of a polymer that goes into this degenerative lumbar disc to help create more space in that disc between the vertebrae, and also to give them back cushioning. So when you bend and you move and you're forward and you jump or anything like that, you got cushioning back. This is for patients who have chronic pain. I mean, their pain is chronic. They've had this pain for 6 months or more. They've tried injections, they've tried medications, they've tried physical therapy, and nothing's really working for them. And this is for that patient population.
So how do you determine patients are applicable to this gel service?
Sure. So patients would be seeing, their doctor and probably be sent to a interventional pain specialist who would, at a first effort, they're injecting a pain medication into the disc or around the disc area. And they may get several of these. They only last 3 to 4 months at a time. And they may be getting several of these and they're not solving the problem. The pain's not going away. These wear off, it comes back, they got to do it again. So those are kind of the patients, and they get diagnosed with this by usually an MRI. So, it's an X-ray at first, and then an MRI is kind of the telltale to, yes, they have degenerative disc disease.
So the listeners out there, this is not when you feel like you need to grab something over the counter and take a few pills. This is when you've gone through a process and it's been identified that you have degenerative disc disease. Is that a fair summary?
Yes, correct.
Okay, excellent. Wonderful. And how did it come about? How did Regel Tech form? What's the story?
Interesting story is I'm a graduate of Rowan University in Glassboro, New Jersey. And I was up, it's only 2 hours north of Baltimore. I was up at Rowan at an alumni event back in 2016. And somebody at the event introduced me to Dr. Tony Lohman. Dr. Lohman is a PhD polymer scientist expert and was the dean of the engineering school at Rowan at the time. And they knew I was in medical devices and knew that Dr. Lohman had been working on, it was this gel actually. And so Dr. Lohman, we kind of stepped aside and he told me a lot about this gel, and he had been working on it for 10 or 15 years. And that he really had it to a point that he thought it was ready to go and test on humans. But he wanted to stay in the academic sector, and he didn't want to leave and go start a company that he really didn't know how to do that part of the business. So, we talked, and I told him about companies that I've started in the past in medical devices and my experience there and such. But I was running another company at the time called Harpoon Medical. And Harpoon had a deal we had an offer to sell the company, which we had accepted, but it was going to be over a period of time. So I told them, you're going to have to wait. This looks like the sale is going to occur in 2017. And if it does, we can talk at that time. So Harpoon was sold, and Dr. Lohman stayed in touch with me all the time and said, let's go do this. So me and my executive team did not go with the sale. And we consulted with the buyer for about a year. And a year later, we started Regel Tech.
You come across as truly having an entrepreneurial spirit. So you listened, you seem to seize opportunities. Did you have a mentor or someone special earlier in your career that inspired you?
I don't know if there's one person I can point to, but I had a lot of, I started off in the sales world, starting off with Becton Dickinson and moving to other big companies. And just a lot of the sales managers and a lot of people I met along the way were people that inspired me. I don't know if I can point to one exact person, but I just had a lot of people I looked up to along the way.
Maybe a leader, possibly someone that you admire. Is there a particular leader that comes to mind?
I don't know. That's a question. Again, it's hard to point to one person. There's a person I always liked. That it was when I worked for a company called Medic PRN. My boss was a person called Bill Glenn, and Bill was good. I thought I was a good salesperson. I went out and closed a lot of accounts and did a lot of work. But Bill kind of brought me along to become a regional manager with the company, and go on from there. And he was calm, but we had good conversations and good long talks, and I learned a lot from him.
Fantastic. If I were to ask your team, people that work with you, to describe you as a leader, how do you think they would describe you, Bill?
I think as kind of a quiet leader that respects the people that work for me. And I'm not a jump up and down, shout it out kind of person, but what I enjoy the most is really going out and in startups, you're starting up, you're watching, you're making sure the device works correctly on patients or in patients if it's implanted, right?
Right.
I love being in the procedure room or in the operating room. That's where I really like being. I like talking to the doctors. I like seeing the patient results firsthand. I like talking to the patients, even if I can. Sometimes, in studies, you're not supposed to know their identity and you're not supposed to get close to them. But I like doing that. I like finding ways that we can make things better for patients and people, especially that, want more minimally invasive. They're not want to jump into a surgery. So a lot of people are holding off because they want to do something a little bit less invasive, maybe at first, and see if they can put that surgery off or if it never has to happen. And that's what I enjoy doing.
That's great. Were you always interested in sciences or the application of sciences, or is this something, an interest that you acquired later on?
Yeah, probably. My mother was a nurse, and she used to come home and probably tell too much at the dinner table what went on in her day sometimes. But I always felt it was really interesting. And then I had some friends who were a bit older than me, maybe 10 years older than me growing up. Like when I was in college, they were out of college working already, that got into medical sales and had really good careers. And, I saw their lifestyle and their career and where they were. But I didn't start there. My college degree is not there. My college degree is in law. And it's kind of law justice degree. And I actually wanted to go to federal, like FBI or CIA or Secret Service or something like that. And it just, timing's everything in this world, right? And when I came out and graduated from school, none of those agencies were hiring. It was really difficult to get in. And I just got lucky and met somebody one night that said, "Hey, I'm a regional manager for Becton Dickinson. I'm hiring and I'm interviewing tomorrow. Do you want to come and see me?" And I went and he hired me. And that's how I got into it. But I always thought that would be something I didn't think with my degree in criminal justice. That was an area I could get into, though. But at the time, it just worked out for me.
You kind of light up when you tell that story. So it is interesting how our careers can take changes.
That's for sure.
So the healthcare, which is a huge umbrella, it's a huge, around the world, it's an entire big market divided into various different sectors, but it's a very complicated, competitive space. How do you manage the challenge of potential competitors? I know you have a unique product, but what challenges do you see and how do you overcome those?
Yeah, it's really interesting. You're trying to bring a new product to market that's going to be first in class, the first one into the field, which is always difficult. Are you going to be the guy that comes with the fast follower, like somebody's already kind of broken the ice a little bit, and you've made another product that's close to it, but even a little bit better because you've seen their weaknesses? That's really interesting. Do you have especially when there's things that there's huge market opportunities, like with Regel Tech. This is $1 trillion market opportunity in the United States. There's probably 9 million people with degenerative disc disease at some level that could use treatment. And there's really nothing good for these patients right now. So it's really it's a fun one to get into because, there's this whole group of patients. We probably have 50 patients a month sign up on our website looking for updates and clinical trials and when's this going to be available all over the world. They're not just from the US, but they're from all over the world that are out there looking for something for this problem. But it is you're looking all over. Like today, when I'm pitching companies, obviously the biggest thing about being a startup CEO is raising capital. And you're constantly pitching people and raising money, right? My job is not to let this company run out of money, and keep it moving so the people that work for me can do their jobs, right? And people ask you about what the competition is, and there's other people with other things. I think we're further along in this one, but you always got to have your eye out, and you always got to know what's out there, and you always got to be looking. You got to go to meetings, you got to listen to them present their data and understand where they are, and then talk to experts in the field. KOLs in the field are the big thing, that you sign up KOLs to work with you and around us, but you also want those KOLs to understand what else is out there. What are they seeing? What are they seeing? How can they help you and differentiate you from other things and other products that are coming along?
Let's speak to those people who are coming into their new careers. Do you have any advice for, let's say, someone either just entering college or just coming out of college? If you could make a recommendation for them, and you've got these budding entrepreneurs, any recommendations on what they should be doing or what they should be studying, what direction they should head?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the academic courses these days. I gotta be honest with you, but definitely, I think every school has some classes in entrepreneurial business, and I think those would be great for anybody. Instead of when I was in school, to make me take art classes, it would be great if my elective choices back then were in, an entrepreneurial class or a business class or something like that. That was an elective that would have kind of helped me along a little bit better. But also reach out, use your summers. Back when I was going to school, the summers, go get a job so you can make a couple $1,000s to have in your pocket for school the next year. Yeah, you still should be making money. Help your parents out a little bit. They shouldn't have to take care of you all the way. But, try and find something in an area that you think could be exciting and something that you're interested in. It was one thing at Harpoon. We took a lot of engineering students in the summer. We had an engineering intern program. And since we were a University of Maryland licensed company, we went to the University of Maryland and we looked in their biomedical engineering program for students that wanted to get into medical devices and wanted to learn. And we would bring those students in for the summer, sometimes 2 or 3 of them. But we ended up hiring 3 or 4 of them at the end of the day. They came back maybe 2 summers in a row, and then we just needed them and they had experience, so we hired them. So I would say look for companies where you think you might have an interest, and look for summer entrepreneur programs and summer internships that are available to get a peek into the business.
When you're looking to add people to your team, do you have any particular specific characteristics you look for in that process?
You're looking for people that my teams have been fairly, like I said, I brought everybody from my last company to this company kind of with me along the way, and I've known people along the way. So I count on people knowing people. I have probably, I think it's over 3,000 connections on LinkedIn. So when I'm looking, I go out to people I know first, and then ask, do they have somebody who they know that could fill this role that they worked with in the past and they've been happy with in the past, right? And then, people I work with have their own connections and such. So I really look out to find people. If I need to go to a recruiter, I'll go to a recruiter, but I always want to make sure that the person I'm looking for that final position knows somebody else in my network somewhere that they've worked with and they can put me in touch with before we bring them in. But I really like my team to interview too. I don't just do the interviewing myself. I really like, probably 3 or 4 of the people in my team to interview the person. So we'll bring them in for a day and set up interviews with 4 or 5 of us. Even a lot of us work remotely. A lot of my people work remotely, but I still bring them in for a day. I think that's worthwhile, meeting people face to face instead of, over Zoom when you're going to hire.
I hear 2 underlying themes: the importance of networking, so you move people along, and mentoring, those 2 pieces. So that seems to play well with suggesting people do some entrepreneurial studying, but also get out there and move around and meet people. It's how we find who we work well. You have to, sometimes it's hit or miss when we do our initial companies.
Yeah,
So,
and I love when people that, especially the younger people we bring in, that I can probably say I've definitely launched 20 plus people into the medical device field, from bringing them out of college or in their first job or maybe even a second job, and launched them off into the medical device field. Just because I knew them maybe through one of my kids, or I knew them through somewhere else, and launched them, and they've had great careers in medical devices and still in medical devices doing different things. And that makes me feel really good that, I've launched people off into a career that I found exciting and I find, rewarding, and can launch other people into that, give them a peek into it, and then get their interest there and bring them along. I actually just had one this weekend. It was one of my son's friends that I convinced to come to work for us at Vapotherm. And he really didn't want to do it. And I kept on telling him, come on, Glenn, come for a summer. And he's not left medical devices since then. And that was probably a good 15 years ago. And this is his 3rd company he's moved on to, and is doing really well in it, and loves it. So that's great when you can say that.
that's fantastic. So I'm always curious who people are reading. Do you have anyone in the leadership field, or do you have anyone in the medical field that you read or that you like to follow?
I kind of follow different people on LinkedIn. I'm not a big reader of people's biographies and that kind of thing.
Okay, that's fair.
In my plane reading, I read like John Grisham books when I'm on planes. That's kind of like take me away from everything, right? And take my mind somewhere else when I'm on a plane, when I don't have work to do. And if I'm on a plane, that's usually a book that's always in my bag is the next John Grisham book. And when I've read that type of things.
I appreciate the honesty. I appreciate you.
No, I do.
Yeah.
I read abstracts in my field. That's the other thing I'll read is I like to, read abstracts and see what's going on in, mostly new devices coming to the market and competing. You'll get abstracts at meetings and they'll get put out online and things like that. Full papers take a while, but abstracts always kind of give me a good look at where people are and what they are, and like different journals from different organizations are kind of what I keep an eye on. Mostly online. I don't get a lot of print, so mostly I do a lot online.
The reason I asked that question is that I like to ask people this question from someone I've most recently read. There's a market researcher called Marcus Buckingham. He's had several New York Times bestsellers, but his newest book is called Love Plus Work, which are not 2 words that we have traditionally put together. We're not supposed to talk about love at work, right? But he's looking at what he's found is that those people have really successful, employees with high satisfaction can drive, better revenues. And what you need to do is identify what it is that they love about their work and let them do more of that. So I'm giving you some time to think here. what is it that you love? And I think I know where you're headed with this, but what is it that you love about your work?
Yeah, I love teaching and showing doctors new devices. And like I said, helping the patients along the way, but just seeing, being in there when you teach somebody a different way to do something, they've been doing it for a while, right? It was interesting. I never knew how I would do in a operating room when you have somebody's chest cut wide open and they're laying on the table and they're on bypass. But didn't take me many cases to get my legs and stand right behind Dr. Gammy, and he was really great because he showed me exactly how he fixed the mitral valve, and just loved that. And I just fell in love with being in there and listening and watching how a team in an operating room works together so well with the lead surgeon. Maybe I got off track here a little bit, but I mean, that's what I like. And being, we started Regel Tech cases down in Colombia, South America during the pandemic. And we couldn't go. Colombia would not let us fly in, and we were approved to start the study. And, we had all these people and patients waiting, and we figured out a way to send down iPads and have an iPad on the doctor and an iPad on the fluoro screen. And we could split on my computer back here. I see 2 split screens, put my buds in, sent earbuds down to the doctors in Colombia, and we just talked them through cases. And, to see that we could do that and we figured that out and we understood it, and we had to put a little bit more bandwidth in the procedure room so we didn't, conk out and get jittering on the screen. But it worked, and we got our first 12 cases done that way before we had to travel. So it was something that we did, but it's where I like to be. I like to throw on scrubs. I like to go in the room. Sometimes they got to tell me to kind of like take a backseat a little bit and not talk as much. But, it's funny, in Harpoon days, I'm in an operating room with Dr. Gammy, who's one of the world's top mitral valve repair doctors, and a doctor in England. And we got to a point and they both turned around and looked at me in the surgery. I was standing right behind them and say, okay, what do we do now? Because they were at a point that we had to make a decision. And they looked at me and I was like, you guys are the surgeons, come on. Like, that they would even turn and look to me and ask me what to do was kind of stunning. But it's fun. It's where you really get the adrenaline flowing, when you go into the room and your scrubs on and get ready to go. Even though I don't touch anybody, but you're still there in mind and spirit and with your voice.
I can see the joy in your eyes. I can see you light up when you talk about that. So I've asked you some questions. What have I not asked you that you'd like to share, either about Regel Tech or some other organization?
No, Regel Tech is good. I don't know if you not asked me a question, but where are we today with the company? Where does it stand? Would be great. So Regel Tech, we've done 75 patients to date, starting back in 2020, and they've all been done outside the US. So we started in Colombia, South America, doing patients in August of 2020. And then we moved to Calgary, Canada from there in 2022. And just to get a little bit different in type of practice we were dealing with, type of patients we wanted to see. We wanted to see if we were going to see similar patient in the practice and everything. And it worked out really well for us. I love going to Colombia. It was fun. It was a great adventure. It's a CRO that's a US CRO, but the people are all from Colombia originally. And it's called BioAccess, and they take companies down to Colombia for early access for medical devices to do their, not in drugs are called phase 1, and devices, it's, first in human kind of work. All regulated by the country. It's not the wild, wild west by any means, but it was fun. It was a good place to go when we eventually could go down in late 2020, and learned a lot and met a lot of new people, and it was fun to do. But we've done that many patients. We got great outcomes. We learned a lot from our first 20 patients. We went on to a next set of 20 patients that we put our learnings into, and we've done better and better all the way through. But it's really rewarding when we see the first set of 20 patients even get to 3 years now. And at 3 years, their pain has gone from like a level 7 to a level 2 and a level 1. And some patients are at 0, but our average is down to a 2. And that's just tremendous that you could take somebody that was being treated with drugs or with pain medications, still had a level 7 pain out of 10, and you brought them all the way to a level 1 or 2 and some to 0 is very rewarding and very great. Now we have, the FDA has approved our what's called our IDE trial, or our pivotal US trial. And we are raising the funds right now to get that trial up and going. It's an expensive trial. It's 225 patients. 2/3 will get gel, 1/3 will not get gel, but they won't know who got gel and who won't get gel. You know, it's a single blinded study. And we hope to get that started still this summer or late this summer, once we pull the funding in to get that done.
Fantastic. So if anybody wants to find out more about Regel Tech, how do you suggest they do that?
Yeah, they can go to our website. It's regeltech.com, regeltech.com. Or you can connect with me on LinkedIn is one of the easiest ways to do it. Or it's BNILAND@regeltech.com is my email address.
Again, Bill, thank you so much for carving out time. I know you have a busy schedule. I've enjoyed talking with you. This concludes this episode of Top Floor.